Welcome to In Pursuit of Truth. This is your host, Sir Patrick Mack. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my patriotic duty to get all pursuity. That's right, and that's exactly what I'm going to do today. Now listen, I am once again going to be on the move probably in the next 24 to 48 hours. We shall see, so stand by, but I wanted to work through a thread with you today, spend a little time on that. But before we do, I must acknowledge our newly elected Speaker of the House, Nancy Pants Pelosi. And here she is, receiving her gavel.
And to the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, I extend to you this gavel. Thank
you. She's pumped up, eh? All right, well, congratulations, Nancy Pelosi. You know, Nancy Pelosi's daughter came on TV, had nothing but nice things to say about her.
She'll cut your head off and you won't even know you're bleeding.
They want to know if he still got it. They say raps change. They want to know how I feel about it.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is Nancy Pelosi's own spawn. Yeah, true story. I'm over here on the Twitter thread of Greg Rubini, R-U-B-I-N-I at Twitter. And if you are on Twitter, I highly suggest you check him out. It's got some great threads. Usually puts up a couple a week. And I always really appreciate the work done over here and have found it to be rather trustworthy. Now, this information comes to all of us from 8chan, but Greg put it together in a real nice thread. And I wanted to share this with you. And this is regarding leaks from DOJ Bruce Orr hearing. And if you'll remember a while back, those of you who have followed my channel for a while, we've had multiple clowns and FBI agents that have been testifying: Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, Bruce and Nellie Orr, and then of course Mike Cortan, Bill Priestap. But I think that the one that really intrigued me the most, and I remember saying this to you some months back, was going to be Bruce Orr, because Bruce Orr was the door. He was essentially the one who was the real go-between between the UK, MI6 and whatnot, this kind of made-up intelligence, and our own clowns and our own mainstream media. Now, it looks to me like Nellie was the one actually making the communications, probably more directly with Christopher Steele via this ham radio. Remember, she got a ham radio license back in May of 2016. I also want to rememberize you that Nellie Orr, Harvard graduate, speaks fluent Russian, and that's really important to remember that she speaks fluent Russian. Now, her and Bruce are in lots and lots of hot water, and of course their testimony was a while back, but this was something that has been shared very recently, and I wanted to share it with you. Let's check it out. Stunning revelations from someone who was actually in the room during the closed door session. Here's the thread. And here's we're going to kind of go back and forth between the thread and some of these 8chan quotes here, because it will implicate Obama. They all know but are dancing around that fact, and that is the response here. Bruce Orr said that FBI counter-intel chief Priestap threw Strzok under the bus, essentially working outside of the chain of command with higher-ups in an unnamed third agency. Another Anon says because it will implicate Obama. And this is the Anon that we're basically focusing on right here. They all know but are dancing around that fact. Getting things are record to get the, and I don't remember exactly what it says here, but I think we're going to find it later. DOJ, Bruce Orr is spilling everything and naming names, dates, and places, cutting a deal to save his beautiful wife, Nellie. Yeah, right. Like I said, Nellie was the one directly communicating, so she was really in the most trouble, and that scared Bruce Orr like crazy. And of course, looking out for his own woman, he decided to probably rat out on much of the higher ups, Bill Priestap being one of them. Orr is admitting that they conspired to lie to the FISA judges to spy on candidate Donald Trump and secretly subvert and impeach President Trump. And here is, it's a little bit blurry here, but this is a tweet from Fox News that is referencing an article. FBI agent says Bureau leaked stories, then used them to get FISA warrants. And it says here, and naming names, dates, and places, cutting a deal to save his beautiful wife, Nellie, is admitting they, along with many others, conspired to willfully lie to the FISA judges in order to spy on candidate Donald Trump and secretly subvert and impeach the president. This implicates conspirators with collusion with foreign nationals in the UK, Australia, including Russia intel assets tied to the Kremlin government. The upper echelon of the DOJ, FBI, and CIA were in tandem working at the behest of the Obama administration in effort to tamper and meddle in the 2016 U.S. presidential election in favor of then Democrat candidate Hillary Clinton. Several U.S. national news organizations and publications are implicated in the disclosure today in Congress with laundering falsified allegations to bolster credibility for the renewals of the FISC, applications being the FISA court. And remember too, Bruce and Nellie Orr, they are clowns through and through. And I'm talking Camp Peary farm raised, farm grown, free range clowns. This implicates conspirators with collusion with foreign nationals in the UK, Australia. Okay, we just read that. And then it talks again, what about the upper echelon? So yeah, this is essentially selling out the top echelons of the DOJ, FBI, and CIA. And of course, all of those have been fired. We've talked for months about that, right? This is why. And this is why Bruce Orr's testimony has been so big. Now, this is just a repeat of that post here. So we get to number 5. Several U.S. national news organizations are implicated with laundering falsified allegations to bolster credibility for the renewals of the FISA applications. Yeah, and I also told you this a few months ago too. We were talking about this, what I call the Whopper with cheese. It's the full FISA D-class, right? And we had some of it redacted come out, and we had some of this, so a little bit by bit by bit, we're getting little bits of information. But what we've not gone is this really full dump, right? The Whopper with cheese. And what I've suspected all along is that these national news organizations already had it. Remember, there were some of these leaks that were getting to them. They were probably already in possession. And that is precisely why MSM is so anti-Trump, because they know they're implicated as well. Many of them could be guilty of sedition, maybe even as high as treason. I think probably more sedition, but you understand. So is that Washington Free Beacon, Washington Post, New York Times? It could have been the BuzzFeed, right? Yahoo. Michael Isikoff was essentially the first one that broke this, right? And he was the one that said it wasn't even true, this whole story about Russian collusion. Number 6, one of the members in the hearing, Hot Mike, mumbled, "No one survives from this." Well, that is pretty telling right there. So this guy, like I said, it was evidently in the room, and that's what they're saying here in these posts here. One of the members in the hearing, Hot Mike, mumbled, "No one survives from this." Bruce Orr confirmed that Comey traveled to the UK to meet with GCHQ, MI6, Hackluit, and Halper to spy on Donald Trump. Comey traveled to the UK with 2 Obama White House officials. One could be Susan Rice, National Security Advisor. Yeah, and we've kind of suspected this. We're not really sure exactly who it was. At the time, I kind of was wondering if it was Peter Strzok. I'm not really sure. John Brennan, not really sure. This Anon thinks it could be Susan Rice. Bruce Orr confirmed that IG and Huber have had several interviews separate from his wife. Yeah, and that's very true, and we knew about this from Q. Let's flash back a size.
Gotta flash back a size, yeah, take you back, yeah.
Taking you all the way back to August, post 1988 and 1990. And I just want to turn you on to 1988. This was a response to a tweet from Paul Sperry, who had talked about Mueller. Mueller hasn't interviewed Bruce Orr, but apparently John Huber hasn't either, even though Huber was tapped by Sessions to investigate the FISA abuses. Well, he's kind of been spouting off again about Huber, right? A lot of you have been asking about that. Well, let me just go ahead and respond in post 1990. Now, this link here took you to a letter written by Chuck Grassley. This was requesting another special counsel in regards to the the DOJ's handling of this Steele dossier. And then here we see the actual interview dates. So this is a response to Paul Sperry here, showing that Orr has indeed been talking. And here are your 302s right here, more 302s. Tons of interviews from Orr. We see it starting back in November of 2016 with the Hussein administration and the FBI. So we talked to them a few times, likely getting some stories straight during transition, right? And then we see about a month later, that indeed Bruce Orr was talking to POTUS. So like I've said before, Bruce Orr knew so much, and that's why there had to be so many interviews. And he had lots to tell, obviously, because he had something on everybody. He had so many of the actual comms. And so you see POTUS, James Comey, POTUS, James Comey, POTUS, James Comey. And then we have with the IG also. And who's that? That's Inspector Horowitz, right? And then we get this last one here in May. And this was one day prior to James Comey's firing. And James Comey's firing really came at the recommendation at that time of Rod Rosenstein, being Rod Rowe saying James Comey's got to go. And then we've got a couple more 302s here in May with the POTUS and IG. Meetings not yet released, plus 7. I think we've had a couple more since then, obviously. Huber plus IG is what we've been talking about all along, right? Horowitz and Huber. Now, remember, Horowitz and Huber are not tasked with Trump-Russia collusion. And that's a very important thing to remember, because all these things that are being given to the IG don't have anything to do with Russian collusion. So what are they investigating? I think you get the idea, right? And of course, this has flown under the radar for a very, very long time. And you've got guys like Paul Sperry, who recently just came out saying that Huber isn't doing anything about this. Kind of the same worrying that he was doing back here in August. Let's move on. Number 9, DOJ, Bruce Orr loathes President Trump. We see here on HN, Bruce, our exact words, loathe President Trump. Asked if that motivated his actions, quote, "You can say that. Bruce Orr is flanked by 3 lawyers or bodyguards. They don't look happy, fidgety." Number 10, Bruce Orr said that FBI counter intel chief Priestap threw Strzok under the bus, working outside of the chain command with higher-ups in an unnamed third agency. CIA, John Brennan. Yeah, likely. Look, I was actually wrong about this a while back. I thought Priestap was going to play the Strzok game and not talk. Turned out to not be the case. So if you'll remember, Priestap was kind of the one who got thrown under the bus by Comey. He was sort of going to be the fall guy for this whole thing. And being counter intel chief, he would have been the one. If Christopher Steele was going to get paid for any of his services, it would have gone through Priestap. Okay, and his direct superior would have been Andrew McCabe, and then of course he would have been superior to Peter Strzok. So any of this going on would have been known by Priestap, and it looks like once that got found out, it looks like that James Comey was likely going to go ahead and let Priestap take the fall for this. And Priestap even came out and said Comey is a traitor. So when it came time for this testimony, and of course, we don't know all of it. Hopefully at some point we will. I would imagine that Priestap just went Nagasaki all over on Comey, because he was already sold out. He had every reason to. And of course, he has plenty of reason to protect his own behind, right? So Priestap's testimony is likely very damning too. And remember, who would he be testifying to? So we say here, CIA, John Brennan, yeah, likely James Clapper as well. Bruce Orr said that FBI counter intel chief Priestap threw Strzok under the bus, essentially working outside the chain of command. Okay, we read that. And then we see again this, because it will implicate Obama. Yeah, this was all about protecting really essentially Obama. As much as we like to think it's Hillary Clinton, Obama knew about all this. He knew that they were, this was a completely illegal FISA warrant. They all know, but are dancing around that fact, and then we see that still cut off there. Anon says, because it will implicate Obama. Here we go. Sources reply, they all know, but are dancing around that fact. The Republican reps are getting things written down in the records, transcripts, official documents that can be used in court to get to that point. And then we see this is just more of the same here. Note, the leak was being typed live during the hearing. We have very good reasons to affirm it is authentic. This is coming from the thread writer Greg Rubini. More to come to be continued, and there is more here. Bruce Orr reveals that the whole thing goes well beyond the Christopher Steele fake dossier and the FISA application. Also, the New York Times and the Washington Post are heavily implicated. Goes beyond the dossier, New York Times and WAPO. Bruce was asked if his wife currently works for the U.S. government. Yes, but at the behest of attorneys, not to mention which agency. Bruce Orr is drinking a lot of water, and here is basically just a summary of that. Orr's answers yes, but at the behest of his attorneys, he is instructed not to mention for which agency. Okay, well, we know that they were clowns, right? Source, seems Bruce Orr is ganging up against James Comey, former FBI director under Obama, rather than Andrew McCabe. Interesting, he adds. Note, Both former FBI Director James Comey and Andrew McCabe have been fired from the FBI and are under criminal investigation. Bruce Orr then names Aunt Loretta Lynch, not clear in reference to which subject. Well, I would have a feeling that this has something to do with Loretta Lynch's comms with James Comey. Lynch is being named just like that. Another recess. Funny. Congress in recess. Lunchtime. Then we get to 18. Source says that they, being the Democrat representatives, are seriously afraid of Bruce Orr and his revelations. That's what I said. Like, this guy has literally everything. Oh, no, I haven't. They are seriously afraid of him. I wouldn't waste my time if this was not the case. This was the Anon responding to another Anon on 8chan. Bruce Orr said he has had dinner with Robert Mueller several times. They discussed about President Trump once briefly. Now the questions get back to the FISA application. Bruce Orr hinted that one of the judges was in on it or had full knowledge. Damning, I always suspected that. Is the judge in question Rosemary Collyer or Rudolph Contreras? Well, either one could be correct, right? Now, remember, excuse me, Rudolph Contreras, we saw through text messages, was personal friends with Peter Strzok. So Peter Strzok and Lisa Page were both familiar with this judge. This was the same judge that accepted the Flynn plea and shortly afterwards recused himself. Why would he do such a thing? And who was the judge that replaced him? That would be just Judge Emmett Sullivan, right? And Emmett Sullivan was recently trying to get Flynn to not plead guilty. Yet Flynn was standing strong and saying, no, I know exactly what's going on here, and I am keeping my plea the same. Why would that be? What does Rudolph Contreras know about what's in this information? And why is Flynn so adamant about wanting to enter his plea that way? Is it because he knows he's going to testify? Number 21, Anon comments that explains the deafening silence from the FISA judges. Yeah, nobody wants to speak out about this, right? And of course, Justice John Roberts doesn't want to say anything about this either because he likely knew about this too. This goes all the way up to the Supreme Court. Source replies, well, they only mentioned one of them thus far, not named though. And here's just the same comments here on 8chan. Everybody was paid, including his wife, Orr said, shaking my head. Source, Bruce Orr saying that he regrets being led by Steele. Orr got played. Interesting that it was Orr's bosses that encouraged the relationship. Note, which means Sally Yates and Loretta Lynch. Orr really screwed up. I guess the wife had the pants in the operation relationship. And it just says it's basically the same thing here. Now it gets on to Sally Yates. DOJ is named by Bruce Orr. She's royally screwed. Flynn should be happy. Well, I think we all know at this point that Sally Yates was an enabler. She enabled this collusion, right? She would have had to have been in charge of knowing about this, and she was probably in charge of grabbing a lot of this information too. She was one of the ones who signed off on these FISA warrants. So if Bruce Orr is naming her, this is going to go all the way to the top. The source said that Bruce Orr mentioned 3 times the British spy Stephen Halper. Contract work was his exact wording. Bruce Orr said that the data of the Fusion GPS servers have been handed over to the White House. Damning, they are screwed. And this last part here. The British spy Stephen Halper is a good friend of former CIA Director John Brennan, by the way, and connected with the UK private intelligence agency Hackleat. Photo of John Brennan right here at the New York office. There they are. There's our Patriots smiling big. Here's another. Moving on to part 2. Source. The intelligence services of UK and Australia are heavily involved, not officially sanctioned. That's what Devin Nunes had to say regarding this intelligence that was going into this so-called dossier. Okay, it was skirting the intelligence services of the Five Eyes being, Canada, UK, New Zealand, Australia, and the US. The intelligence services of UK are GCHQ and MI6, Five Eyes. Well, the horse's mouth has confirmed on the record. Anon says the head of GCHQ resigned immediately after Trump was elected, Steele dossier, etc. And the BBC told the same lines as CNN and other fake news outlets, which is true. Source, Bruce Orr basically admitted that they intentionally omitted important information in Trump's presidential daily briefings. And of course, there's no real news there. Lisa Page cut a deal with the investigators for your information. Peter Strzok obviously did not. Or thus far is Page 2.0. Someone's phone ringer went off. This means that our source was present also during the closed door hearing of Lisa page. So whoever was supplying this information likely was there too. Therefore, we see that Bruce Orr was 100% cooperative with the rep's questions. And from the above post, we can infer that also Lisa Page was a cooperative witness, which is what they said. On the contrary, those who have watched the hearing of creepy Peter Strzok, he did not cooperate at all. Strzok lied all the time. Source: Lisa Page and Bruce Orr contradicted each other on some key aspects. Guess Lisa Page is coming back. Source says, shocking that they all allowed Bruce Orr to speak this much. Well, most of his bosses are gone. Bruce Orr's bosses were DOJ Attorney General Loretta Lynch and Sally Yates, both fired at the beginning of the Trump administration. And remember, think back to all those interviews that I just showed you, and that would make sense, right? Source: Bruce Orr named a lot of people. Let's recap. Orr named James Comey, Sally Yates, Loretta Lynch, Peter Strzok, Andrew McCabe, Bill Priestap, Rod Rosenstein, Christopher Steele, Stephen Halper, and John McCain. Plus, Orr named Fusion GPS, one FISA judge, unnamed. We probably got a couple suspicions there, but we're not exactly sure. UK, GCHQ, MI6, Orr also hinted at John Brennan, the CIA, and named the New York Times, Washington Post. Okay, well, this should make perfect sense then for all of you who are rather new to QAnon, why exactly the world seems to hate President Trump right now. And that's exactly why the UK is scrambling to cover their own behinds, right? And of course, John Brennan has been outwardly extremely hateful towards the president, because this is direct treason right here. John Brennan knew about all of this. And John Brennan was likely the guy who was getting all this information to the New York Times, Washington Post, BuzzFeed, etc., etc., etc. Remember, him and Clapper ended up becoming these like pundits on this MSM news channels, you know? Bruce Orr also talked about interviews he had with IG Michael Horowitz and Utah U.S. Attorney John Huber. There you go. So we've talked about that earlier. And several dinners with special counsel Robert Mueller. I'm certain Rudy Giuliani knows it. And then here's the end, almost. This was part 2 of the leaks from Bruce Orr hearing thread. I hope you enjoyed. Intelligent comments and further hints will be appreciated. And then here is some of the reference here. So thanks so much to Greg Rubini. Again, Greg Rubini on Twitter. Fantastic insight. And the reason I think this is important is, like I said a while back, Bruce Orr knew about all of it because basically these were the mouthpieces, right, in between them and Christopher Steele. This was the direct link. Let's read this real quick here. Additional information. At the closed doors hearing of Bruce Orr in front of the House Judiciary and Oversight Committees, 7 Republican representatives were present. They were Jim Jordan, Trey Gowdy, Matt Gaetz, John Ratcliffe, Mark Meadows, Darrell Issa, and Andy Biggs. What is the most stunning thing about it? You surely remember how vocal and effective Trey Gowdy was at the public hearing of fired and creepy Peter Strzok, and how aggressive and sarcastic Trey Gowdy was towards Peter Strzok. The most stunning thing no one noticed is that we did not hear a peep from Trey Gowdy after the Bruce Orr hearing. Not one word. After the Bruce Orr hearing, we heard comments from John Ratcliffe, Mark Meadows, Darrell Issa, and Jim Jordan, but nothing from Trey Gowdy. Isn't it weird? It surely is, but no one noticed. And about Jim Jordan, an Anon wrote, "How was Jim Jordan?" Source replied, "Calm." Calm? Isn't it weird? Also, Jim Jordan was very tough and aggressive toward Peter Strzok during the Strzok hearing and very effective. So why instead was Jordan calm at the Bruce Orr hearing? Think about it. Because Jordan knew that they finally had the chickens hatched, the chickens being James Comey, Loretta Lynch, Sally Yates, and Andrew McCabe, and John Brennan. James Comey, Loretta Lynch, Yates, Brennan are the second line, which ultimately leads to Barack Hussein Obama and Hillary Clinton. They are all screwed. Yesterday, President Trump wrote this tweet, treason, and this was September. Yes, sir. Below is my reply to President Trump, and you can see that he includes his thread here. Let's go back to Jim Jordan. Jim Jordan, calm, like a cat licking its lips. We have this new interview of Jim Jordan on Fox News, and let's check it out right here. He's asking us to check out at 15 seconds what Jim Jordan says.
You bet.
All right, did you get answers to your questions today?
Yeah, we did. We're not allowed to get into all the details until the transcript goes public, but understand the basics, which I know you do. Bruce Orr, top Justice Department official, his wife worked for the firm hired by the Clintons to put together the dossier, which was the key thing to go get the warrant to spy on President Trump's campaign. We did learn today for sure that when the FBI took the dossier to the secret court to get the warrant to spy on Carter Page, they didn't tell the court important facts like who paid for the document. They didn't tell the court about the Orr's involvement in producing the document. And they didn't tell the court that Christopher Steele had this extreme bias against President Trump. Important facts that they should have disclosed to the court. They didn't. They got the warrant, and they spied on Carter Page.
All massive details. Well, thanks to Jacketless Jim Jordan. Many of you guys already remember this, right? And I think the point that Greg is trying to make is that Jacketless Jim Jordan doesn't look like he's too bothered about this. We have this very interesting and revealing interview of Representative Ratcliffe on Fox News. Now, I'm not going to play you all these videos here. I will leave you the links to these so you can check them out for yourself. The last part says here, remember this about U.S. Attorney John Huber. Source, Bruce Orr confirmed that he had several interviews with IG Michael Horowitz and U.S. Attorney John Huber separate from his wife. Pretty big to know. So it looks like Bruce Orr was likely doing everything he could to save his beautiful wife, meaning selling out a big part of our DOJ, which is exactly what we would like to see. We want to see exactly what went in to all this application for this FISA warrant. We want to see who was spied on. We want to see how it was done, how it was paid for. And I think we already know, but it's time for the rest of the world to know. So thanks again to Greg Rubini. Fantastic thread. I hope you appreciate it as much as I did. All right, Patriots, I'm going to leave you with that today. I got to go handle some business. I may or may not be on the move. So like I said, stand by, but I will probably get at you in the next couple days. All right, that's all I got for you. As always, if you like this video, please click like, share, and subscribe. Thanks to all of you who already do that. I greatly appreciate your love and support. Check me out over here on Twitter at IPOT1776. That's IPOT1776. I do not have time to do it today, but I've got a thread on China that I would love it if you could check it out. It is right here on my page. That's once again at IPOT1776. I'm also on Gab, BitChute, and Brighteon.com, which used to be Real.video. It's Brighteon.com. All those links are down below. My email link is down below, and my Patreon is down below if you'd like to support the channel also. And if you're old school, my P.O. box is down there too. All right, kids, that is it for today. My name is Sir Patrick Mack, and until next time, stay sane.